Hello beautifuls, my name is Quavia. I'm the creator of JuJu Thyme, and in this video it's actually a little different. In the comments section of one of my videos, a subscriber actually asked a question, and I thought, what the heck, I should just, make a video about this as well. So the question, or the statement is, I want to start spirituality. Any advice? So yeah, let's get started answering my thoughts on any advice I would give someone that is wanting to start their spiritual journey. All right, so let us begin. Okay, so first and foremost, I have my notes in front of me, so if I'm looking over here constantly, just because I want to keep track and stay on topic of everything that I want to speak on. And another thing is, I want to try to separate starting your spiritual journey with and not associate it with starting or connecting to a witchy kind of journey. Even though those paths can be quite similar, not everyone is going to be drawn or guided to that, right? Some are going to be guided to what we call now a spiritual journey, or a journey to enlightenment kind of vibes that they're on in this life. So first and foremost, I want to just speak on the fact of spirit in general. In Latin, it means breath or wind, right? There's like some connections to the word spirit, to the word breath and wind. And so when starting your spiritual journey, you want to focus on your breath, right? So first and foremost, begin to recognize the moments when you stop breathing, or the moments when your breathing starts to quicken, and you should slow it down. That kind of reminds me of when I was younger and I was taking my driver's test. Long story short, I promise, but long story short, after the whole test, I was in the driving portion with the instructor next to me, in this big Ford F-150 truck. And oh my goodness, when I finally parked this truck, in the parking lot, just as I was, instructed, I turned to the inspector, the driving instructor, and he legit told me, you did not breathe that whole time. I was watching you the whole time and you did not breathe, not once. He's like, I'm gonna need you to breathe. So yeah, recognize the moments where you're just tensing up and you're holding in that breath when you should be letting it out slowly, or when that breathing starts to get fast, when you're anxious or scared, and when you should just slow it down. Okay, so first and foremost, spirit is connected to the breath, right? And what I notice when I hear people, tell me that they want to start their spiritual journey, in my mind, you started it either, well, there's two views. I have two minds. I always have two minds. But there's two minds of thoughts, and it's like you either started, well, some people believe, sense, not believe, they sense that you started your spiritual journey from the very moment that you were born. That's it. That once you were born, you already began your spiritual journey, right? And then there's the other thought that you began your, that you begin your spirit journey when you start asking questions, when you started, just asking questions in general about starting a spiritual journey, or questioning things you know, overall. So, but in these kinds of situations, I also started to realize now that I've been on this journey actively, like consciously, actively on this journey for quite some time now, is that when people are talking about wanting to start their spiritual journey, they are some are talking about it in a way of they are wanting to step outside of religion, right? They're wanting to expand from religion. And so for this, you know, in this kind of thought, yeah, I can understand why some individuals be like, okay, well, I'm starting my spiritual journey because I'm stepping away from this and then I'm going into this kind of vibes. And yeah, so with that kind of thought, I do have some advice that, yeah, I would love to share. So first and foremost, challenge what you've been taught. For example, this can be your thought processes on your idea of good and bad, of heaven and hell, etc. You know, your thoughts of sin, thoughts of karma, yeah, all of this stuff, right? Challenge what you've been taught. You can definitely look to other cultures, you know, and what they say about this. Just expand it, right? But definitely you are getting outside of your bubble and you're just learning. That's it. A second thing I would say is with just learning and stepping outside of your bubble is be curious and ask questions. Many of us grew up in households where we were not encouraged to ask questions, right? And so that in itself, there's a lot of courage that needs to be had when asking questions. But just breaking out of that in itself, right? Knowing that it's okay to ask questions is one of the ways that you can start to challenge what you've been taught, okay? So anyway, for example, in terms of being curious and asking questions, if you come from a religion that uses the Bible, let's say the Bible, as your holy text, well, I should say, I guess from the very beginning, I should say, start where you're at. Start from where you are, okay? Start from where you are. So in terms of being curious and asking questions, right? You can start with the Bible, right? You can start with the Bible and, you know, start to read it for yourself. Start to read it for yourself, highlight, put question marks, or, you know, form your own thoughts and opinions about it, but then also other individuals' thoughts and opinions about it that may have a different view than just, you know, the view that you grew up in, right? This is all a part of that challenging and expanding your mind, but instead of going outside and like other cultures and things like this, you're taking a second to just start from where you are and go from there, right? There are a lot of books, well, I don't know, well, I'm pretty sure there's a lot, but one book in particular that I'm thinking of just now, and it's How to Understand Your Bible, I believe. I'll make sure to like put something here so that way, you know, you can, you know, if you feel called to it, you know, then you can sort of pick it up and see what you learn from there. I think there's also another book, but I can't think of it right now, but I'll just make sure to put whatever I can think of. Yeah. But yeah. So as you are, okay, so you are challenging what you've been taught. You're being curious, you're asking questions. Now what? I would say develop your discernment. Developing your discernment in the beginning of your spiritual journey is super important. Not because there's all the scammers that are out there and you should really practice discernment. But also, right, not everything that you will read or not everything that you will watch or listen to will resonate with you. It's just, it won't. You could be reading, I cannot even tell you how many times I've been reading, let's say, one book, and the first chapter or like one chapter will resonate with me big time. Like something in me, I'm just like, whoa, okay, something unlocked. And then I read the next chapter, for example, and completely doesn't resonate with me at all, right? So definitely develop your discernment and that feeling inside of you. Now, in regards to this, in regards to things resonating and not resonating, there's three things I wanted to make note when it comes to this. One, it may not be for you to understand. So if something doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't mean that automatically this individual is wrong, right? We're stepping away from right, wrong kind of mindset. But it may not be for you to understand. Or two, you may understand it more later. This has happened to me so many times where I don't know, I read something weeks ago, months ago, heck, it even happened like years ago. And then I returned back to it because I like to torture myself and reread things. Anyway, so yeah, I would reread this said book, you know, and a part that I know it did not resonate with me before, like nothing felt like it was unlocked, or, you know, even I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this, right? I went back to it like a year later and it finally made sense. It finally made sense. I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about. Oh, okay, right? And it's just because like from the time I had read this said passage and then everything else I had to experience, everything else that I had to read or listen to or watch or just learn from in general, it sort of was preparing me so that when I did like reread this one passage again, it was like, oh yeah, okay, I can see how they calculated this, and I can see how they got around to that from that, and okay, cool. And then from there I can then make a judgment on like, okay, I understand it. Do I resonate with it? Is it something that's speaking to me, right? But that is for you to determine at that point. But also, if it doesn't resonate, just let it be. You know, it doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wrong. Without judgment, just let it be. Number three, if it doesn't resonate with you, all these emails, let me close my emails, because I do not need distractions. People who know me know not to distract me. Then that's it. Okay, so yeah, as I said, number three, God. If it doesn't resonate, I have found with things that just don't resonate, is that for some people, right? And I think it happens to all of us. So I shouldn't even say some people. I think on some level it happens to all of us, is that we read something through the lens of our trauma, or through the lens of our discomfort. And because it makes us uncomfortable, because it may trigger some trauma, we may automatically reject it as, oh, well, I just don't resonate with that. And I say, recognize what comes up, right? That discomfort, that trauma, right? Note it down, okay? And then perhaps, if you feel called to, work on that. Figure out what was so uncomfortable, what was so triggering, you know? And then maybe down the line, if you feel called to it, maybe not, depends on the subject and the topic you know, it definitely depends. You can revisit it later in the future and then sort of determine like, okay, I'm gonna reread this. It's been X amount of time. I've all, you know, perhaps, you know, I feel like I have dealt with some of my discomfort in certain topics, or I've dealt with some trauma. Let me see if I have any thoughts, and then revisit it. Now, it could be that it still does not resonate, and once again, that is okay. But now, without that lens, perhaps there's some like revelation that happens, or some kind of thought that comes up of like, oh, instead of this, what about this? You know, so it's developing your discernment, asking questions, challenging, being curious. It's all part of the spiritual journey. Which the last part I would want to say to this is also study. Study, study, and study. I would say study what naturally interests you, right? What engages your passions, right? Or engage in your passions. You'll be very surprised on, you know, of some passions that you may have that, because let's say they're creative, or you know, or let's say it's creative for you, it's sort of a little gateway into you know, tapping into yourself deeper, which is a part of that spiritual journey. And then I would also say, when it comes to studying, decolonize whatever it is that you are studying. Decolonize it, and also give credit to cultures that they stem from, especially if it's a culture that is outside of your lineage. Okay, give that credit. That is also a part of decolonizing, is giving credit. So that is what I would suggest when, you know, people are wanting to expand from religion, and really start to actively, consciously walk on a spiritual journey. Okay, one thing to remember is that the spiritual journey is holistic. Okay, so what that basically means is that you are healing, you are paying attention to, and you are learning from your mind, body, and spirit. It's all of this wrapped into one, and you want to make sure that your healing, your attention, and your learning is reflected by your actions. Okay, it's holistic. Holistic meaning whole, all. Okay, and then the last thing I would suggest, my advice when it comes to starting your spiritual journey, which is something that was never told to me, but I, you know, eventually began to learn this, is be mindful of spiritual psychosis. I remember when I first started, well, when I consciously started actively like participating in my spiritual journey, I did not hear of, I did not know what it was called. I didn't know what it was called. And definitely, right, when I think of just moments of my spiritual journey as a whole, I was like, wow, man, I could have really been on the brink. I could have really been on the brink there, you know? So a spiritual, you know, being mindful of spiritual psychosis. Now, this could happen if you are spiritual or religious, or either, or even if you're neither. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. But spiritual psychosis is definitely a thing to be mindful of. I wrote down some ways that I felt, you know, how this can be avoided. Okay, now, so the first way that I would say that you avoid this, that of how you avoid spiritual psychosis, is to know that you can't save everyone. You can't save everyone, and everyone is not for you. Okay, so this is a very clear understanding that your way is not the only way. Some people need organized religion because it's organized. They need that organization, okay? Others need other things, and you know, and it may be different from the path that you're walking on, but once again, it's okay. All right. Also, how to avoid this is to maintain a dual mindset, right? It's like this both and kind of philosophy. This is what I constantly mean by, like, I feel like I'm always in the dual mindset, you know, looking at, always in the middle, looking at both possibilities. Maintaining a dual mindset will help you develop the understanding that it's okay if you don't have all the answers, and you alone won't have all the answers. So that's one of those dual mindsets, both and kind of philosophies that you can definitely participate in, even when you're doing your studying, because you're gonna run into different, sometimes contradicting philosophies or thoughts, and you're like, well, how does this make sense? Dual mindset, okay? Dual mindset. Just so another way to avoid spiritual psychosis is not entering spirituality as a way of escape, or in a way of like opting out of healing, which seems quite, like, I don't know how that would be possible, but dual mindset, everything's possible. So but yeah, so spirituality, don't enter it in the sense of needing to escape or like opting out of healing. And because once you know, there is no unknowing, you know. And this may trip some people up, because you may find yourself, right, going in a circle, constantly going in the circle, and it's like you're picking at the same wound or that same scab over and over and over, and you're calling it healing, when really you're just living just in this circle, right? Where, when more or less your spiritual journey will be more like a spiral. Now, for some people, they will visualize this spiral as like it's transcending, it's going up, right? For others, you know, they are going into their spirituality and they feel the spiral sort of taking them inward. I mean, it definitely depends on the individual, but it's more like a spiral. So as you're going in this spiral, right, what you don't want to do to be mindful, you know, to avoid spiritual psychosis, is don't lose touch with the present. You must stay grounded in reality. You must stay grounded in reality. You know, as you are going along your journey and you're learning online, through books, with people, with mentors, with me perhaps, you know, you'll hear a lot of people, you know, they're talking about, you know, like getting out of the matrix, shifting realities. You hear a lot of people talking about time jumping, you know, etc. Things like along this line. And these things are real, right? These things are real. But to do these things, one, you have to have some understanding of the reality that you're in, or the realities that you're constantly moving in and out of, whether you're moving in and out of it intentionally or accidentally. But to even just notice, you know, you have to be able to remain present, right? And a part of this remaining present is also gaining a knowledge of yourself. You know, something else that you'll hear a lot is people say, know thyself, you know, that phrase, you know, and perhaps it's quite tiring to hear, but honestly, like, just one of those things that are just perpetually true, you know. But it's, you know, it is a part of it. And To know yourself is to know yourself not just in the past, but also who you are now, you know. So remaining grounded and present, along with actively choosing to walk your spiritual path. This whole thing about reality and things like this, it will be more like knowing the cheat codes for the reality that you're in. But ultimately, as you grow and as you heal and change, your reality will change with you. How you view things will change with you. How you react to things will change with you, right? So you are constantly, so being present and being grounded and knowing yourself will keep you actively engaged as you are just walking about your day-to-day life, okay? And as I said, this is also a way to avoid spiritual psychosis. Now, this can be quite confusing because this is not about, when it comes to like your reality and things like this, you know, and you're on your spiritual journey for whatever reason that you're on it. What I don't want it to be confused with is that you need to accept your reality, right? Because it's not about accepting your reality. It's more about being aware of the reality that you're in and not letting it consume you. Okay, so for example, if you say, I'm sad and I'll always be sad. I'm sad, you know, this is you acknowledging your reality. It's not escaping from it. It's not opting out of it because, oh, it's a low vibrational thing or you know, whatnot. Saying that I'm sad is you acknowledging it. It's you admitting what your current reality is looking like, okay? But by saying, okay, well, oh, I should just be grounded and be present, so I guess, you know, I'll always be sad. That is you accepting the reality when really that's not the case, right? You don't need to accept that. You know, you don't have to accept it. With love, discipline, discovering your passions, getting help, you know, going to therapy, etc., etc. There are ways of you opening up to the possibilities, and this in itself opens up a whole different set of what's possible. You know, opens up different set of realities that can help you once again navigate where you are now. Okay, so definitely when people say, you know, like, know thyself, yeah, they're taking it serious. And what it is mostly is self-accountability. When starting your spiritual journey, it is something that you will have to face. You know, answering the question of how you have participated in your own suffering, you know, how, you know, maybe shame and fear were done to you so many times that, like, they don't even have to, you know, that outside force or whatever, they don't even have to do it to you anymore because you do it to yourself. You know, you just keep doing it to yourself, you know, at that point. So self-accountability, especially, you know, as we're going in the spiral, you know, upwards or inwards, however way you want to view it. It's both, it's neither, in my opinion, you know. But either way, you know, you will be tapping into that self-accountability, basically. So yeah, those would be my my main gist of my advice on what I would give to someone that is starting their spiritual journey. I say, welcome, come along with me. That's what I would say. Some final things I would like to add, the last tips regarding your spiritual journey, I will say, is maintain a spiritual hygiene routine. You definitely want to maintain that. This will look different for everyone. A spiritual hygiene routine, it's a way that you cleanse yourself. However way you feel cleansed. Physically, remember, this is holistic. So it's, you know, spiritually, physically, mentally, you want to maintain your spiritual hygiene, okay? 2, I would recommend definitely taking breaks. This is what I wish I knew when I first, as I said, started actively, because I went in and it was, and technically it is, I mean, this is what I do. It is everything, right? It is everything. It's a way of life. And your spiritual journey is going to become a way of life, right? It's going to be so natural to you that it's like, oh, you're on a spiritual journey. Oh no, I'm just living life. It just happens I'm living it in a spiritual, holistic way. That's what it's gonna end up feeling like, right? Especially when it's no longer something you're having to consciously choose. It becomes something that you just automatically do. It just is at some point. But definitely take breaks, because like I said, it can constantly feel like you are talking about spirituality. It can constantly feel like you are reading something about spirituality or watching something about spirituality, and it's just like, oh, you need a break. You need a break, okay? So definitely read that romance book that you've been wanting to read. Watch that action movie that is just pure nonsense. I'm talking about Fast and Furious. Some people might disagree with me, and that's okay. Anyway, but yeah, just do it. Take a break. Taking a break is also something that is very spiritual, right? It spiritually just refuels you, because it's connecting you just back to just joy. Your spiritual journey, and however path that you choose, it is not meant to torture you or make you feel shame, right? There will be moments where that perhaps it will trigger certain parts of you of, like, you know, discomfort and stuff, but you'll feel free, and the feeling of joy should be the main focus, right? Especially if you're coming out of a religion that is filled with shame, and like everything you do is shameful, everything you are is shameful. Like, it's, you know, it's a lot. And so we tend to, when we are looking at different spiritual paths, we're finding like, okay, so how am I shameful and sinful in this spirituality so I can fix it? Because I couldn't fix it in the other path, the religious path. Maybe I can fix it in this path. There's nothing to fix. It's nothing to fix. The spirit of joy should be what you are connecting to. When, you know, if it makes you feel joy, it makes you feel free, if it makes you feel just at peace and relaxed and loved, then yeah, perhaps that's the path for you. You know, I mean, it's your own, I can't tell you that, but perhaps that's the path. I mean, I think those are pretty good signs. I mean, feeling peace, loved, joy, okay, you know, and healed. You know, you feel like a lot of the things that have been holding your mind, holding your heart and stuff, you're feeling healed from it slowly. It's a journey, even that's a journey, you know, then I think that's the right path. I think it's a good sign of the right path. Also, meditation will look different for everyone. This is something else I would recommend. The last thing I will say is an ancestor altar. Yes, I would always suggest an ancestor altar. This is a great space for you to honor, to learn, to unlearn, and to undo a lot of the things that we inherited. Whether we wanted to inherit it or not, still, it's a way for us to address what we have inherited from the people before us. Especially if we have ancestors that participated actively or passively in oppression, in oppressing others in some shape or form, and also addressing generational trauma, but also generational blessings. Oh crap, there's something else I wanted to talk about. It's not even something that I'm going to talk about on YouTube, because in depth, I may have to go over on my Patreon to talk about this. But on your spiritual journey, you may come across individuals that would make you feel like you need to try some herbal medicine to help you get through your journey in XYZ. I say this is when your discernment will definitely be in your benefit. Do not do anything that you're not comfortable with. know yourself in what you know you really shouldn't be experiencing or putting your mind and body through, because that is a whole process. That's a whole process that is that sometimes you need to make sure that you are actually ready for. I can talk about my own personal experiences with that sort of things. Once again, perhaps, you know, in another platform that is not so public. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't know if I would. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble or anything like that. So yes, don't do anything that you're not ready for, and it's okay. You do not need anything to start this spiritual journey, okay? You do not need anything. Only when you are ready, only if. You might not ever, and that's okay. Once again, not everything is for you, and that's okay. Because that in itself, that can be quite dangerous in sort of activating a spiritual psychosis, you know, because I mean, it's really serious thing. So anyway, I guess no, I actually needed to add that in because I don't want anyone to feel pressured that they have to do something, do anything for anyone. No, you don't have to do anything. You are already on your spiritual journey, okay? So anyway, that's what I want to say. So thank you for being here with me and watching this video. Put in the comments any other advice you would also add. And yeah, so thanks. Until the next one. Truth and love.